Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hello, and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today, we radiate Contemplation with David W. Berner, who's the author of Walks with Sam, A Man, a Dog, and a Season of Awakening. So, David, your book says it's a beautiful, heartwarming account about the power of animal healing, mindfulness, and your incredible relationship with Sam. Welcome, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Today. I'm glad to be here. Really nice.
I tell you, I've been looking forward to this because I just love dogs. And you have such a special relationship with Sam, don't you?
Yeah. Sam came to us, my wife and I, kind of an odd way. We had lost both of our dogs, mine first, hers after that. We had a second marriage, and we had the dogs for some time. They're both old. But we were in the process of determining whether we were ready for another dog. I was probably more ready than she was. But Sam came to us through her ex-husband, believe it or not. He had purchased the dog and because it was hyperallergenic, and his girlfriend still got very, very sick from it, even though the dog was hyperallergenic. So she's very sensitive, and he needed to get rid of the dog. And my stepdaughter said, "Why don't you guys take it?" And I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and I said, "How about a weekend test run?" And we brought Sam over for a weekend. I fell in love immediately. I love dogs, but this one just bowled me over. There was something about her demeanor, her whole process of looking at life, in a way, if you could say that about a dog. My wife came along with the idea too, although I was smitten first. And then Sam, ever since then, has been uniquely connected to me. I don't want to make too much of it. I'm not trying to suggest that, we're talking to each other in sign language or anything. But there's just something about Sam when we're together. She's a very smart dog. And I just feel connected to her particularly well. Maybe it's about where I am in life too. So that might be it. But I've always had dogs. I've had dogs all my life, one time or another. And Sam's pretty special.
That's pretty remarkable. I mean, there's like just the dog of your life, We have these special.
Sure.
Mine is Milu. Now I've got this wonderful dog, Lily, and she's just absolutely wonderful. But she will not replace that one special dog. Mm-hmm. So Sam, we were just talking a moment ago. Yesterday, we're recording this August 11th, I believe, and you had a tornado in the area.
Yeah, we live in the Midwest, outside of Chicago. There's a little spot about 40 miles outside of Chicago they call Tornado Alley. And it's been hit many times. We don't live too far from there, but we live far enough that we feel a little safer. But hearing tornado sirens go off around here is not that unusual in the summertime, especially late summer. But this one felt different. The sky was green. The power went out well before the wind kicked in. And we had a tornado in the city of Chicago, actually, in the far north section of the city. And we had some tornado warnings going on for several hours. Power was out for 3 hours. So it was a little hairy for a while. We're okay, and everybody's good, and nobody was seriously hurt or anything, so we're okay. But Sam, as most dogs, get upset with tornadoes and bad weather and thunder, and Sam kind of slept through it. That's just kind of the dog she is.
Special dog. That is a special dog, and fireworks don't bother her either.
No, they don't seem to. I think the initial crack of a firework kind of turns her head, like, what was that? But she doesn't cower. I don't see that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why that is. She's pretty sensitive. She's a sensitive dog in terms of emotion, I think. So I'm not sure why that is with her, but she just doesn't get that upset.
Right. And she's a great walking partner, of course.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what the book's all about. Right.
Exactly. And it came from a blog. So you've been blogging.
Right. It did. It came, I'm a writer. I've written several books, and, I need to be writing. It's just what I do. So there had been some kind of shifts in my life a little bit. My sister had died. I was at a mark in my age that made me rethink where I was and what I wanted to do. And I had some time off. I was in my sabbatical from my college teaching position. And I thought, this may be a good time to just try to be a little more contemplative, as we were talking about before, and think about kind of where I am and relationship with my sister and all of that. And I figured I'd just do it with Sam. And we started a blog, kind of like talking a little bit about where we were, meaning Sam and I. She was young and we were getting to know her, and where I was in my life, and then what those daily walks were. And they were started out as sort of observational. And then they became sort of more contemplative, as we were talking about. And that's what the book turned into. The blog, it got some hits, and it seemed to be fairly successful, as blogs go at times. But someone had mentioned to me in a conversation somewhere along the line after reading the blog, saying that to me, that's a book. And I wasn't sure about that, but I started to play with it, and it became a manuscript. And some of the walks that were in the blog were readjusted, and some were dropped. Some other walks were added. So it was based off that blog. I wouldn't say it was word for word, and it became a book. And here we are. So it was tremendous fun doing it at the time. It was cathartic in a way, and it became a book that I think is not only for a dog lover, but anybody who finds a connection with animals or nature or the natural world, or even people who love to walk and find that as a restorative kind of process. So I think that makes sense for both people. It isn't just a book about dogs. It's really about people and where they are in life and the world and your neighborhood and all those kinds of things.
Right. I find that most books about a relationship with a dog is not necessarily about the dog.
No. Well, Sam's certainly a star. There's no doubt about it. But it's not all about Sam. Yeah. She is sort of the thematic thread through it. And there are sections. The book is set up in walks itself. So every walk is a different chapter, you might say. And there are some walks that are clearly very much about her. But other walks are about where she kind of takes me, how she makes me think about something, how she may be observing something and makes me consider my observation. So she's, I like to say she was sort of my shaman, in a way through the whole thing. I think that was, a good way to explain it to people.
Yeah, she's kind of a therapy dog in that way.
Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't really thought about that, but I think that's kind of true in a way, especially for the time that this happened. This was about 2 years ago, and when we were going through all these different sort of emotions at the time. Yeah, she kind of was. She was helpful, very helpful.
Right, gave you at least the catalyst to get out there and the excuse in a way. Sometimes when we're in that heavy grief, that heavy feeling of transition, it's harder to get motivated and harder to get out. But
sure, absolutely.
When you have a dog bringing a leash to you, you're going to get out.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, she did that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly they learn that.
Yeah. And I said, Sam is pretty smart. If, and I think most dogs are like this. If you rattle the leash or show them the leash, they know what's up. And, Sam learned that pretty quickly. I have to say there were times that maybe she didn't necessarily feel like going on a walk that day. But and sometimes I didn't either, but we barreled through and did it together, and it was a lot of fun, and it was eye-opening, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yes, absolutely. It gives you that space. In meditation, walking meditation is very helpful, and that's something that people practice is walking meditation. And
Yeah.
we certainly do this with our dogs. In fact, this concept of meditative mindfulness, contemplation is a through line in this book. And
There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
and no doubt about that. So to you, what is this mindfulness all about?
You mean in relationship to the book?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would definitely.
Your life too.
Yeah, I would say that when I was younger, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, a lot of forests, a lot of mountains, a lot of outdoor life. And I took advantage of it. I mean, when I was younger and in college in Pennsylvania too, we hiked a lot, we kayaked, we were out in nature, we walked, hiked all the time. I remember taking a class. It was a class in college that was backpacking. It was the actual class. These were the hippie days, probably. It was a real class, and we went in the Allegheny Forest and stayed overnight and hiked and learned about trails and all those kinds of things. And it always kind of gave me a sense of peace in a way, like the solace of open spaces kind of thing. I'm stealing a line from a great author, by the way. And that really made me, I fell in love with that. Now, I never became a hardcore hiker. I have a son who does a lot more than I do. He's in the Pacific Northwest, which is a great place to do that. Mm-hmm. But I always loved it. And I always liked the idea of a walk. And then, you grow up, you have kids, you get a job, you have other responsibilities. I don't think I walked as much as I used to or wanted to. But I learned over time that when I really need sort of space in my head, and I need to find space in my head, usually what really does it for me is to get up and take a walk.
Sure.
And I don't do it enough, but when I do it, it is the remedy. And it doesn't always, I don't want to suggest that it always gives me the answer, in quotes, but it definitely does allow me to consider things that I may not have considered if I was just sitting at a table or sitting in a chair. Or I think sometimes in a way, people use, I'm sure you're very aware of this, people use writing sometimes as a therapy process, right? Where, and it's a free kind of thing if you don't try to limit yourself. So when I did these walks, I didn't usually, almost every one of these walks did not have a planned walk. It was, where's it going to take me? Where am I going to go? And I did that on purpose because it allowed me to free up my head a little bit more. If I set it up as a destination walk, it didn't have the same freeing process for me. Because I felt like I was attempting a goal if there was a destination. I didn't want it to be like that.
Right. You have an agenda set up with that.
Right. There's enough agendas in the world. I didn't want agendas on my walk. I really tried hard. At first it was hard. Because when you hike or do anything in the woods, you say, well, we're going to make it to this spot and then we're going to camp here, or we're going to hike here, right? We're going to go to the river. You have a sort of a destination. I tried really hard not to have destinations.
Right.
Yeah.
So very mindful in these outings and these walks, and really contemplating the beauty and the time.
Right. Yeah, the time.
Yes. And how did Sam help with this contemplation, with this mindfulness?
Well, it's interesting. I say this in the book that she is, dogs, and Sam included, and veterinarians will even tell you this, they do not live in the past or the future. They live right where they are at that moment. They are the perfect mindful teacher. They use their sense of smell to get an idea of what has been and what may be coming, but they don't adjust their life to what has happened necessarily. Instinctively, they might, but in terms of like you and I would sit down and say, I went down that one road the other day and it's always slippery when it snows. I'm not going to go down that road again. A dog doesn't really think like that.
Mm-mm.
So to answer your question, she was very much in the present all the time. And, that's a hard thing for humans to do. Sometimes I get it. Most of the time I don't. She was a good reminder for me when I took these walks to stay in that moment. That was the other reason why not choosing a destination was helpful, because it would keep me in the, where am I now? Not how far am I from something, but where am I just at this very, very moment? And she helped me do that, because that's a very natural thing for a dog to do, to stay in the present.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
What else can we learn from animals, do you think?
Well, I think most animals, even wild animals, and I don't claim to be some kind of biologist or zoologist in any way, but just through some of the research that I did with for the book, I've learned that animals of all kinds, they only lash out when they're in fear, or if they're searching for food. Carnivores, right?
Right.
So it's to them, but humans will lash out for all kinds of reasons, So it seems to me that another thing you can learn from all animals, and especially dogs, is they are generally just want to live in the world with other things and other people in an easygoing, life affirming way. They don't want to create trouble. They're not. Dogs don't do that. I think humans can train them to do that. Guard dogs, fight dogs, whatever might be out there. But I think naturally they are not like that. That's not what they do. They come from wolves, and of course they're carnivores. And yes, they may chase a rabbit down the street, but that's an instinctive thing. They aren't doing it because they don't like the rabbit. or the way he keeps his lawn in the neighborhood or something. They don't. That's not how they think. And there's a particular story in the book about a man in our neighborhood here who people think he's out of his mind, and the truth is he's not any crazier than the rest of us. And I say crazy or out of his mind in a sort of loving way. I don't mean to suggest that the man is mentally ill. That's not what I mean at all. It's just that he lives his life differently than everybody else in the neighborhood. We tend to, as humans, fall into the patterns of everyone else in our society or in our world, and he's a little out of that pattern. And for some people, that's unnerving. There's a story in the book about him and how I kind of learned that he is just like the rest of us, really. And there's no reason for me to feel anything differently about him than I would in any other neighbor, really. And that comes from the dog world, too. I think the animal world is like, unless you're going to harm me, I'm probably going to treat you like everybody else, or I should, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I don't claim to be some kind of great animal philosopher or great meditative mind. These are just the things that I learned and observed on the walks. And they're not meant to be anything more than that. And if people get something out of it and can find something in that book, Walks with Sam, that allows them to find their own spot, that's great. And I hope so. The book is not meant to be a teaching manual or a manual for mindness. I don't claim to be the expert on that ever. Mm-hmm. But I do know that walking helps the mind, animals help the mind, and the two of them together on a regular basis can only mean good things.
It can only mean good things. Um, in the book, you talk a bit about your spiritual journey, your own spiritual journey. Can you share a bit about it?
Yeah, sure. I think in a way, if you say that if anybody says they've reached their spiritual pinnacle or journey, if they've reached their destination, I think they're fibbing. I think in a lot of ways we always are searching for whatever that means to us. I was brought up Roman Catholic in a very Irish German family. Went to church every Sunday, went to Sunday school, all those very classic things. There was a moment in time that my father became very angry with the church. It was related to his mother-in-law. I won't get into all the details, but there was a moment where he literally was yelling at the priest outside the church. And I was standing there as a 8-year-old boy or 9-year-old boy, and I thought we were all going to hell. I learned later on what that was all about. And we never went to church again. My mother was still somewhat religious, I would say, in the wide berth of what that means. My dad was maybe still a little, but we never really brought it up much after that. I still went to Sunday school a little bit after that. So I was always kind of disenchanted, like not understanding. I went to church for a little while after that. I found that the only part of the Catholic Church that I ever really liked was when they turn to each other and say, "Peace be with you," because that seemed to me it was the only part that made sense. But that was me. Later on, I tried a couple other churches because I felt like I needed something. I've read a lot of books. I think I'm in a place now where, as John Lennon said, God is a concept. Not suggesting that there is no God. That's not what I mean, and that it's a man-made concept. What I mean is that word can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. Yeah. And whatever gets you through the night, you can believe. For me, God is something we'll probably never really understand. Yeah. But there's some higher power, something, meaning, force, whatever it may be, out there that helps guide us. And we all try to find a way to find the right glasses that'll let us see that. I think that's what we all do. And some people go very traditional church. Some of the people do not. And I'm one of those who do not, but that doesn't mean I'm not spiritual, because I think I definitely am.
Right. Well, there's no coincidence that God spelled backward is dog. And I've always firmly believed.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's very true.
I've always firmly believed that they are closer to God than I will ever be. Did you know that Radiate Wellness has a subscription-based premium content Facebook group? Think of it like the premium version of this free podcast. In this premium Facebook group, you can find great content like replays of online classes, meditations on angels, chakras, mindfulness, and more, guest speakers, mini classes, polls. Plus, you'll be the first to know of guests that we have scheduled for the podcast and can submit questions for them. You get all of this great content for one low monthly price, and the first month is half off. You can subscribe by going to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/shop. Click the subscriptions button and you're in. Also, while I have your attention, wherever you're listening to this free podcast, if you could just do us a couple of favors, please. One is go to hit the subscribe or follow button. Then you'll be notified of all of the episodes we have coming out each week. Also, please rate and review. It sounds really simple, but it helps us to grow our audience when people are looking for great podcasts. And when we grow our audience, we can do bigger and better things and bring you even more great guests. So please do those couple of things, and that will help us grow this audience and this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And that's your spiritual journey. I think that is one that many, many people share.
Sure.
These days. But Sam's had her own journey. What happened to Sam?
Well, Sam was bred and came to us, and
A golden doodle. I don't think we'd met.
She's a golden doodle, but she's black. So she's got the poodle side of her is a black standard poodle.
Mm-hmm.
So she's all black. She's got some gray, not necessarily from age, just coloration in her. She's got some gray in her face and a little on her paws, a little on her tail. I suspect that will probably increase as she ages. But she's only 4 years old, so it's not about age. It's just the coloring. But she's got, she's a golden retriever too. So she's a golden doodle. She's got a lot of retriever in her. She will sit in the backyard and, bring you the ball and throw the ball for a long time. So as retrievers do. And but she's got a lot of poodle in her, and poodle owners always tell me that poodles are very smart. The veterinarians have told me that too. They're one of the more intelligent breeds, and you can see that in her. Smart in terms of sort of knowing our patterns. She's bright. She learns quickly. She learned. I think I only had to say to her, and I'm very honest about this. Only had to say to her twice, like when there's time to feed her, that I'd say sit and then feed her, and then she'd wait to eat so she wouldn't gulp it. She learned that in a flash, very quickly. I had a golden retriever that probably took a year to get that. Okay, but she is a lot smarter. So her makeup, I think, is a good one. For a dog owner, for my sake. Absolutely. She's a very caring dog too. She shows a lot of affection, which is wonderful. So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. So she's growing with you. She's learning, growing, developing, changing right along with you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The bond. There's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
In your book, you talk quite a bit about the bond we have with animals.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that a bit? Just that bond.
Well, I can talk about what I have. My experience, and my experience is that my grandfather gave me a dog when I was 1 year old. It was a full-bred collie, and her name was Sally. I'm not sure where that name came from, but her name was Sally. I remember being so connected to that dog growing up, walking in the woods with her, being in the backyard with her, sleeping with her. She's the kind of dog that you could lay your head on and fall asleep, and she'd just let you do it. She was very special to me growing up. And we had many dogs after that, and many of them, they've all had their special time for that particular time in my life. So for me, dogs have always been, except for a few years in college and maybe a few years after college, that I didn't have a dog, but dogs have always been a part of my life for one reason or another. I never had a bad one. We had some ones that were more difficult than others, but not bad ones. Right. My kids have grown up with dogs. They both have dogs. My wife, I'm not sure she grew up with dogs, but she's had a dog most of her life before we were together, too. So it just seems totally natural for me to have a dog around. I know that's not true for everybody. I'm not expecting it to be true for everybody, but for me, they are a soothing factor in your life to me. No matter what. Yeah. Yeah, they will give and take love unconditionally. I know it's said a million times, but that's very, very true. It just comes completely natural to them without hesitation. Absolutely. I mean, how could you not want that? It's just like, come on, that's what we all want, isn't it?
Exactly. They never have a bad day. They never complain.
No, they adjust far better than we do. And I'm not to say that, maybe we can learn that, but, humans just don't pivot as easily as dogs do. Oh, you're not going to feed me now? Okay, well, I'll go lay down and chew my bone. And that's it, right? It's
Exactly.
over. They don't whine, they get mad. They don't, it's like.
They don't hold a grudge.
No, they don't hold a grudge, you know. So, that particular process that goes through in their minds, I think we can learn from too. I mean, we're never going to be like them. They're never going to be like us, of course. Our minds are different, more complex, whatever that may be. But, certain qualities, absolutely, we can take with us and hold closely.
Oh, absolutely. And they never truly leave us. We
No.
entered this relationship with our dogs knowing that it's going to come to an end.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But that's true for all of us, isn't it? I mean, we're all temporary. It's a terrible thing to say, but it's really true. And that's one of the reasons why, to me, if you can work toward living in the present as much as you possibly can, that's the way to go. Because, worrying about something you have no control over, even though we all do it, and it's hard not to sometimes, that just creates more anxiety, that creates more of an unbalanced presence at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have no other time but right now. We don't. I mean, I know that is cliche and you hear it a billion times and it's, on T-shirts, but it's so true. It's very true. It's just hard to do. It's hard for humans to do, I think. I don't think it comes easily.
No, and we do have, as humans, we do have this concept of time. We have a concept of past. We have a concept of future. Of course,
Right.
There's nothing that we can do to change the past. There's little we can do to affect the future. All we can really manage and change is the present time. Dogs have no concept of that.
No.
They don't understand past. They don't understand future. They don't understand these consequences, not in the same way that we do. And so, we do have some things we can learn from them, don't we?
Yeah, there's no question. And that's not to say that it comes easy to learn, though, either. If you just observe your dog, you'll be a better person. I don't think that's necessarily true either, because we're hardwired. We're different. We're just different.
Right.
But, and it's not easy for humans to adjust their behavior. That's the difficult thing. So, to suggest that, you take 30 walks or so like I did with Sam and suddenly you're going to be a better person, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is it does open your mind up to things you may not have considered before. And maybe that'll lead you to a place you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this book, Walks with Sam, has gotten some wonderful advance reviews. You've got some wonderful blurbs and commentary on it. And as you said, you're a writer. How many books have you written?
Walks with Sam is my 8th book.
Wow.
Different publishers, but I don't know how not to write. I have something out right now that I'm having some pre-reading done on, some people, experts in that particular field, reading to see if I'm hitting the mark on. I'm working on another novel, but I also had a dream the other night, ironically, about my sister, who also sparked a little bit of this Walks with Sam book. I had a very vivid dream about her. I dream about her now and then, but this one just really shook me. And I thought about that for a long time, and I needed to start to write about that. Maybe that's a therapeutic thing, but I've had a difficult time writing about her in a lot of ways. So this maybe would have been the thing to allow me to think about that. So I started to write about her life because it was a unique and tragic life. And I wanted to, not only for my own, maybe it'll never get published. Maybe it's just something I need to do. But I started to do it, and I just actually read a little section of what I've been writing to my wife, and she said, "Are you going to be all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I've actually come to the time in my life where I can write about this now." So I don't know how not to write. I don't know what life is without doing that.
Yeah.
My background has been broadcast and journalism.
Right.
And I really started writing in a manuscript form in my mid 40s. So it's been fewer than 20 years of writing in manuscript form. Yeah. I mean, I've written a lot of articles and journalism pieces and things like that, but not in terms of books. So I have two novels to answer your question. I have two novels, several different memoirs with different particular takes on it. And this book, Walks with Sam, is, I guess you can consider it a memoir in a way.
So. Yeah, reflective, based on blogs. And and you were a college professor as well.
Yeah, I am still a college professor at Columbia College in Chicago. They gave me the opportunity, really, with the sabbatical, to be able to think about this book in a very focused way for a long time. So that was helpful. I teach classes in broadcast and journalism and things of that sort. So, yeah, and I still work in broadcasting a little bit. I still do some work like that. I'm a reporter and anchor at an all-news radio station. I've done some things for CBS. I've done some things for National Public Radio. It's been a while since I've done that, but I have. Done some audio documentaries that have been played around the country. So I still work in that field a little bit. I still love that craft. So I love the storytelling. I learned probably late in life that my job is a storyteller. I was a musician. I was a writer. I was a broadcaster. I was a reporter. I was an anchor. And when I kind of put all those together, an author, I put all those together. My job is a storyteller. That's what I've been doing. That's kind of what I do.
Yes, in all the different formats.
Yeah, in all different formats.
Yeah. Yes, that's wonderful.
And I'm Irish, so that's it's in the tea, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah, that's just kind of your thing as an Irish person, is telling stories and elaborating on them. I mean, I understand the concept of you just can't not tell stories.
No, I cannot. I can't do it. I can't imagine having a life with not being able to share stories. I don't know what that would be like.
Absolutely.
I'd be bouncing off the walls.
Well, and luckily you've got a platform, you've got the gift, and you've got the drive, the will to follow through with these stories and put them out in the world. You've got, I'm looking at your website now. You've got Things Behind the Sun, Walks with Sam. You've got, all books, press, everything else on here. Things Behind the Sun. Can you say a few words about that?
Yeah, I just had a copy in front of me here. It's a novel about a father and a son. They had not connected for some time, which is not an unusual thing. But there's a particular thing that happens in their past that is pretty unique. The father insists on them going on a road trip before he goes off to college, before his senior year, after his senior year to go off to college. And they decide to go through the American West. So it's a road trip story. But there are secrets unveiled during this trip that come from their family background. There's a meeting that is kind of calculated meeting with a person that is particularly of interest to the son's background. And it's really a story of sort of finding your way. And everyone who is in this book is trying to find their way in some particular form. The father, the son, a woman who is a good friend of the boy's mother, the boy's girlfriend in high school that he leaves behind. There's a number of people in this book that are all trying to find their next place. And the road trip helps them do that with all these family secrets that sort of become revealed through this road trip. So that's what it's about.
Wonderful. So again, taking your contemplation on the road and exploring.
Yeah, I guess that's contemplative too, in a way.
Oh, absolutely.
Actually, that's the way my writing's been described a couple of times by reviewers, like contemplative. Like I take my time to sort of walk you through someone's thought process. I don't write mystery. I don't write, fast-paced suspense thrillers. That's not my style. Right. So, and I find that I write a lot about fathers and sons, not by any design. It just kind of happens.
Right, absolutely. And this storytelling is something that I really enjoy and appreciate in journalism as
Mm,
well. Being able to tell the story, why things happen,
right.
what is the background between things. I think
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow does a very good job of doing that.
Some of the best journalism out there is not necessarily spot news journalism, although some radio and TV and news organizations do that very well. But those who can step back a little bit and then tell the story through someone else's eyes, more of a creative nonfiction sort of approach. Um, those are the real storytellers, and there are some incredibly good people out there doing that kind of work.
Absolutely. And that's such a value.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. But Walks with Sam is, and this Walks with Sam, by the way.
Hey,
Um,
wonderful.
my
Yes.
good friend Jim Olson, who is a wonderful, wonderful artist, did the rendition of Sam on there. He's a great graphic artist, and of course, Round Flower Books did the design. But um, I gave him a picture of Sam, and I said, "Can you turn this into something?" And he played around, and I knew it was Sam as soon as I saw it. So did a very, very good job. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the colors. It's just a nice design. That's lovely.
Thank you.
Of
Appreciate
course, your book it comes out officially September
it.
1st.
September 1st. It's out now for pre-order. There's an audio book, Kindle book, ebook, and the paperback. I've done three audio books now.
And you read the audiobook?
I do. If it's not a novel, if it were a novel that was an audiobook, I'd have somebody else do it. But the memoirs are some of the ones that I've done. So October Song, there's a Hamster in the Dashboard is another book of mine. Um, yeah, and there really was. And I did that one, and I did Walks with Sam. So.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I'm looking at your books list now on your website. The Consequence of Stars, A Well-Respected Man, October Song, Hamster in the Dashboard. That's fascinating. Night Radio, Accidental Lessons, Any Road Will Take You There, Hamster in the
Hamster in the Dashboard is about a life in pets. Like it is short little pieces about incidents that happened with me in my young life, in my adult life, in my kids' life about pets. Things have been, good, bad, and the ugly, not necessarily all sweet and wonderful little stories. Some have been difficult. But they're all stories about a life in pets. And there was a hamster in the dashboard. We took the hamster with us to the hardware store when they got the hamster, and they took it in a box. And like a goofy, not thinking father, we went into the hardware store with the two boys. Says the hamster will be fine in the box. Well, we got back, and the hamster was out of the box, and we've discovered it behind the dashboard. Right. It was alive. It was fine, but it was behind the dashboard.
Which is kind of hard to explain to a mechanic when you take the car in to get.
Yeah, exactly. But the hamster was okay, all good. But that book is particularly about a lot of things, about the things you do well, the things you don't do well as a pet owner, the things that you should have done better, the things that the sad moments, the good moments, the funny moments, all those kinds of things. Yeah.
Wonderful. And then last but not least, you've got Writer Shed, which is a collection of stories. Yeah,
Writer Shed was something that came out of nowhere. I have to tell you about that. I'm so glad you brought that up. We are in the process now of Writer Shed Stories is a literary collection that I just started to put out last year. We did it as a Kindle piece. It's none of my work. It's work that we have curated. And we put it out last year as a Kindle, and it did pretty well. We did it again this time around, and because we did well enough, we had many, many submissions. We had hundreds of submissions this time. We ended up with basically 15 pieces: poems, prose, memoir, fiction, short story, all within that 2,500 range in fewer words. And that's coming out November 1st. We're in the editing process now, pretty much done, but there's a lot of production stuff that has to be done. This year, we're going to do it as a hard copy literary collection and also an ebook. So I'm pleased because we've had, I had so much good material to take and look at. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. The theme of this one coming out in November is called Love and Sacrifice. The broad theme, yeah. And there's some wonderful stuff in there. I mean, and we get from all over the world. So it's been a kind of a very enjoyable process for me. I've never really curated work in this way before. So I'm learning too. But I'm very proud of the writers and the stuff that's in this. So that comes out in November, and it'll be a reasonably priced too. It's a fun thing to do. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Right. I can imagine just taking the best of the best and putting it together.
It's hard. I could have easily picked 50 pieces, but I can't.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
And
it's really, really good stuff. Yeah.
Oh, and then you've won several awards for your writing, for your books.
I've been very fortunate. I won a couple of Chicago Writers Association awards. I won acknowledgement. Society of Midland Authors, which is basically the entire Midwest, honored my book, A Well-Respected Man. I was very pleased by that. Felt very honored, very humbled by it. There's a lot of insanely good writers out there. It's hard to rise to the top for even a brief moment. So that's wonderful. But my two most exciting writing moments, I have to say, I was selected a few years ago to be the writer in residence at the Jack Kerouac House in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, my.
And I lived at his house. It really was his mother's house, but he lived there with her for 3 months in the summer and got to do nothing but write. And it was in the heart of Orlando. If you know anything, if you don't know about Orlando, everybody just thinks it's all Mickey Mouse. But the city of Orlando is very old school Florida and very pretty. And sections of the portions of the city are really a lot of cottages and cobblestone streets, and it's not what people think. So we lived in this old house, restored historic house. That was his house, where he wrote the Dharma Bums, where he lived just after he wrote On the Road. And I got to live there for 3 months, and that was the most exciting, most wonderful 3 months of my writing life. A few years after that, I was chosen as a writer in residence at the Hemingway House, this birthplace home here outside of Chicago. Now, I didn't live there, but I had an office there, and we curated a magazine there. I didn't do all the curating, so it wasn't like Writer Shed Stories. But that was a great experience, too. And I worked with the Hemingway Foundation here in the Chicago area because he grew up in Oak Park, which is a suburb of Chicago, for 2 years, and that was a great experience too. So, but I've been blessed in that way. Have I won a Pulitzer Prize? No, but I'm not pining to win a Pulitzer Prize. I'm very happy with where I am with my writing life.
You've gotten quite a bit of acclaim. You're doing exactly what you want in life, and that's really the goal of.
Yeah, it really comes down to that. I'm glad you said it, put it that way, because I think it's true. It's really about I'm thrilled with what I'm doing, and that's okay. I don't need to. Accolades are great, but I don't really need them. But they're wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It's a wonderful thing to be patted on the back and told that you're doing some good work. That's a very natural human reaction, but I don't pine for it. I'm not, out there submitting to 1,000 awards. It's not that important. It is wonderful when it happens, though. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. And your website is davidwberner.com. Right. This is Berner, Berner, davidwberner.com. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yes. And easy to find me there. If you Google me, you'll find me. It's easy to find.
Good. I love it. And then the book that we're talking about today is Walks with Sam, A Man, a Dog, and a Season of Awakening. David, it's been lovely talking with you today. Is there anything that we didn't cover, anything we didn't touch on that you feel is good to add?
No, I don't think so. You were wonderful. It's great. You asked great questions and, made me think about things I hadn't thought about before. So that's great. Sam is healthy. I am healthy. I hope everybody stays healthy in these crazy times. What a great time to stay home and read a book. So.
I totally agree. Thank you so much.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.